right. And hey there, Tony. And Riley, did you want to go ahead and just do the recording? You got the recording going? All right, great. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Father John Pettigo. I'm from Catholic Charities, Santa Clara County, and we're going to be starting in just a few moments with our monthly brown bag conversation around race equity. Today's guest, will be introducing him in just a moment, Reverend Jethroe Mòore. Our topic today is Black Extinction. So as you are tuning in late or tuning in after post-production or tuning in through the course of the conversation, we want to just welcome all of you coming in. So I'm going to turn it over to our director producer, and that's June Butler, Miss Butler.
Thank you, Father John, and welcome all of you, and thank you for attending our session this afternoon, which is our topic, is Black Extinction in the Silicon Valley. And before we get started, our assistant with us is Riley Scanner, will be playing the Black National Anthem. Please feel free to join in and sing along. Riley, thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till the heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.
I'm listening.
Our day begun.
Sorry, I can't do that.
Till victory is won. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
As I said before, our topic today is Black Extinction in the Silicon Valley. And our speaker today is Reverend Jethroe Mòore. A little bit about Reverend Mòore. And I'm sure there's actually a lot more to tell, but I will give you a little bit here. He was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and graduated from Silver Creek High School and received his Associate Arts degree from Evergreen Valley College and a Bachelor of Science degree in Bible and Theology, Management, and Ethics from San Jose Christian College. Reverend Mòore was licensed and ordained to preach the gospel by Dr. Willie T. Gaines. Reverend Mòore is the Vice President of the California-Hawaii NAACP. He's the current president of the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP, which stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He formerly served as Commissioner of Post, which is the Peace Officers Standards and Training for the state of California, served on the Santa Clara County Juvenile Justice Committee. He was the 2020 Census Count Steering Committee. He was Vice Chair of the Valley Water Environmental and Water Resources Committee. He is also the past co-chair, co-founder of the San Jose Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet. He is an active member of the Eta Sigma Lambda Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. He's a member of the San Jose American Leadership Forum for 28. He's married to the beautiful Audrey Hill of Birmingham, Alabama. They have two sons, Jethroe Zion and Josiah Javon. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Jethroe Mòore. Reverend Mòore, it's all yours. Thank you.
You're on mute, Jeff.
All right. First of all, I was saying I'd like to give a toast to everybody from my leftover Juneteenth red Kool-Aid. As you know, drinking or eating red fruits are part of the Juneteenth celebration. So the sip is for you. And now, if I could, I didn't prepare any slides or anything, but I wanted to label this conversation after one of my, those who don't know, I am a Trekkie. I live long and prosperous. Tagged it the Voyage Home. And if you know about that movie, that was the movie when Kirk and Spock and crew came back to Earth in the search of humpback whales because there were no more whales left on Earth. And I'd like to predict to you that Santa Clara County will at one point get to that point where they will have to come back and find a way to find Black people to live in this community or that will come to this community. When we say the exodus or the extinction of Black people, if you have paid any attention to the health reports over the last few years, well, let's just deal with the Black residents. Despite we make up 2.5% of the population, comprise 17% of the homeless population in San Jose. We can't survive without a house. Whereas in one of their own articles, I believe in the Spotlight said the census data shows that between 1990 and 2019, San Jose lost about 17.6% of its Black population. And from 2000 to 2012, the Black population decreased by another 12%. And as of the 2020 census data shows that there are 30,000 Black residents in San Jose, and I believe 45,000 statewide. Why is this happening? Why has this persisted to happen? Why are the numbers continually going down? And I will say it's the problematic problem, and some of it is the fact that it is designed but with an effect to decrease Black population in this valley. I recently had a conversation with the incoming county manager, I guess his name is Williams. And I asked Mr. Williams, I said, well, what are your plans for our Black community? Have you had a conversation with the Black community? And he said he spoke to two of us. So, well, speaking to two people and adding me as a third person does not constitute speaking to the community and what's ailing us as a community. And as well, we're going to be giving you, we're going to be building an Afro Center for you. I said, but at the rate you get that center up, there will be none of us here to have a conversation about what can do to keep us here or have us here. We won't have enough people to functionally have a center. And what we're going to do, rent out the spaces. I suggested to him at that time, he needed to meet with the Divine Nine. He needed to meet with the church pastors. He needs to meet with some of the older staff that work at Santa Clara County, and needs to bring them in and have a luncheon to sit down and discuss what is ailing Black San Jose. Because the way Black San Jose goes, other populations will dwindle as well. And well, let's just start historically what San Jose has did, just as San Jose State, which was one of the biggest draws that brought many Black people to San Jose State, was the track program or Speed City or and the San Jose State as a whole. What have they done down the Speed City? They have buried the track. They buried the track, which was a historical point of reference for the Black community, maybe not as much lived up to as it should have been, but it was still a historical point marker. And when they killed the track program, which they say they are bringing back, and which they did say, I think it was a year or two ago, they're going to build another facility down and at the fairgrounds, but that's all down the road, and there's nothing here now. There was a time in this Black city where we had downtown San Jose was thriving or trying to thrive, and had several nightclubs that were sponsored or Black people gave events at. They over-policed them. They policed us out of these neighborhoods. So this is a continued pattern of doing things to drive us out. And again, when you look at San Jose State, at one point had the largest Black Greek show on the West Coast, which was killed by that San Jose State itself for whatever the reasons they want to justify it. They killed the Black Greek life on that campus. Look at the history of San Jose. We've had Iola Williams, the first Black city councilwoman. Then after her, Kathy Cole. And I believe after her came Terry Gregory. And then after her became Forrest Williams, and then Chappie Jones. None of which really hold any offices, or most of them have left, or 2 or 3 of them have left the area. Only leaving, I believe, Forrest Williams and Chappie are the only 2 here. And we want to see what they're going to be used for in the future. So Census says that for Black people, Black communities endure a wave of excess death over the last 2 decades. And for us, we're constantly in Santa Clara County crossing boundaries, where we constantly experience stress or anticipate stress. And stress is the #1 killer for Black people. And Black boys are often viewed as older, stronger, and for those reasons that we think that we're not taken seriously, or we're targeted, because we find great numbers of us in foster care and the juvenile hall and in suspensions amongst the schools. So San Jose, from when I grew up, and when we came up, Tony, I guess around here, you know, we had softballs. We had a big softball league, at least 12 teams that came from different clubs or different restaurants that sponsored it on Sundays. We hung out at William Street Park on some Saturdays. There was more a communal apparatus that kept us functioning together as a community. And all those apparatuses now are gone. As I came up, as I was sharing with someone earlier, that my eye doctor, Dr. Livingston, was a Black woman. My insurance man, Dr. Joseph, was a Black insurance man. I still have a Black insurance man, Art Holland now, but Dr. Swan was my dentist. We had people in places in community that we could go to, we could talk about our health needs and other viable things. So those things have all been taken away. I mean, well, not so much taken away, people have either passed on or they moved on, and they've never been replenished. IBM, and Intelligent Black Man Working was what we used to call it, was a big plant, and IBM was constantly recruiting and bringing in Black people that filled these gaps, and that people were able to work and have great jobs, is gone. National Semiconductor, gone. Production industry, gone. And so even here today, I guess the county cut 600 jobs, and we're going to wonder what jobs did they cut, and who's going to get that extra work, and who's going to handle that stress. So San Jose, even though we have given report after report that most of your electronic companies, your big companies in Santa Clara County, have no Black women working for them in executive roles, even though the Black woman is the highest educated person in the United States, according to data. None of them are getting jobs in Santa Clara County in these companies. So it's intentional hiring. And again, I just want to point back, I'm not talking about Mr. Williams, but he got his job without going through an interview process. But yet today, I can tell you, there's a Freedom of Information request in the probation department to try to figure out why the probation department has not been hiring Black or brown males, why there has not been a promotion, there's not been a Black person in leadership of Black, since Jana Taylor was the last Black person on the leadership team over 5 years ago. So why aren't Blacks being hired? Why aren't Blacks being recruited? And when you see there's a problem, what is this county willing to do to fix the problem? So that's pretty much my opening, I guess, and I'll just fill any questions if there are any questions. Yeah, go ahead, Father John.
I have a quick question. How would you, what would you see the role that the state, city, or government can play in terms of recruiting efforts? Because I think that to me is just, I'm just curious, how would we incentivize, how could a state or county or city incentivize folks to companies, private companies to do recruiting, aggressive recruiting for Black engineers, Black developers, software developers, all that kind of stuff. It just, I mean, Atlanta does it, or maybe they don't need to recruit, but how come we don't? But we should be doing something about that. I'm just wondering what you think should be done there.
Well, first of all, we often like to say that America or United States is a melting pot. And the melting pot is what sometimes us as Black people have tried to actually be. Whereas when we look at the reality of it is, we should be more like a tossed salad. The Asian community is able to thrive and keep itself as a, let's just say, as a tomato, and the Latino community is able to keep itself as a pepper or whatever, and so forth and so on, right? But when it comes to the Black community, which sometimes our fault is we're trying to blend in instead of just be who we are and accept who we are, because we're not. We were always taught we needed to be like Mike, if you want to say, right, instead of doing what we need to do. So what we have to understand with this is, I think affirmative action and the continually killing of affirmative action has hurt our community here, specifically in Santa Clara County, since California stopped affirmative action. And as they start to fight back affirmative action in education in schools, it's going to be even more harder to find people when we use school as a qualifying mark. And even my two sons, I don't know so much about pushing them to colleges, I'm pushing them to trades. And the more trades they have, the more valuable they have that they can actually go on than getting in debt to be in the school, because some of us get so caught up in the debt. So you asked me, I would say intentionally knowing that you have a shortage over here and to ignore that shortage in the long run is going to hurt you. Knowing that you're not getting a full perspective, your design concepts and engineer aren't as creative as they could be. And I'll just say, look back over our history as a country. Every time we have intentionally excluded a group of people, it's cost America more in the long run than when we actually come in. Sometimes I watch the History Channel and watch war and think about how many Blacks or Latinos or Japanese people were excluded for participating and fighting for this country. But when they did get the opportunity to serve, they excelled. And I think that's what we're going to have to deal with. How do we want this county to really excel and from all ends? And I hope I didn't just ramble, but I see another hand up. Is Branner? Is that it, Brammer?
Carmen. It's Carmen.
Hey, Carmen.
Hey. So I'd like to add a comment to the question that John asked. So for me, as I see it, there's a lack of accountability. A lot of companies, organizations, government institutions, et cetera, all talk about DEI and that they're going to have, just this salad, as you call it, of resources. But the reality is that they don't have that. They're not going to do. I mean, I was in the workforce. I was in high tech for over 25 years. And DEI was talked about, but never truly implemented because they don't fund DEI programs. They actually they'll appoint a token person. I'm gonna be very transparent here, a token person who's given very little funding in order to really go out and affect change. And so accountability to me is the big thing that there's no consequences for them not doing it, right? There's nothing that anyone says to corporations where we know we subsidize them for the majority of everything. Look what just happened with Silicon Valley Bank. We paid off their debt with no questions. But the minute Black folks come up and say, hey, where's our change? Where's our check? Oh my God. Oh Lord, we got to climb Mount Everest and explain all along the way why we climbing Mount Everest in order for people to feel comfortable with it. But they have no problem when it serves their purpose. And so we have to, as a community, I will say, we have to start expecting and demanding, not just asking, not just requesting. We have to now demand that if you're a company here in Silicon Valley, you have to hire us. Why aren't you hiring? And tell us why you're not. And one thing I would like to say that we should start doing is there's a Silicon Valley Pain Index that was just published for 2023. We have to start measuring this valley against that. It's 4 years now, and it's still ugly, and it's uglier this year. When they say there's 5 people that own the majority of the wealth here, what are they doing with it? What changes are they trying to impact and affect? So for me, and also the nonprofits have to get stronger. Nonprofits have to stand up to these funders and don't just be a holder for their money so that they get pats on the backs for doing good for community and getting a lovely tax write-off. We have to start being much more active about this work and holding folks accountable. If you're the 5 richest people, what are you doing with your funding money? Hopefully not just paying back your fund. So there's a lot that can be done, and it's on us to really be bold and be willing to step forward in doing that. So
well, Carmen, let me respond to that. When you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and you're 100% right. And that's why I had tried to form a company called Jedi, and I picked it up one place. Because you may have diversity, equity, inclusion, but if you don't have any justice that holds them accountable, nothing changes. They check the box and do the same old thing, and they spark it down, and they give money in platitudes not to do anything. Because we often say that, like, let's look at the last couple of years. The Jews, they got a national strategy against anti-Semitism. The LGBTQ got a hate crime executive order passed. The Ukrainians were given $70 billion. Asians, they got a hate crime bill. Black people for Juneteenth, we got a concert. We got a concert. We didn't get the Voting Rights Act passed. Nothing changed. We got a gift to go dance and be happy, and that becomes problematic. And again, oftentimes I read a lot of Malcolm, and Malcolm has said this quote. He said, "The white man will try to satisfy us with symbolic victories rather than economic equality and real justice." And we're not getting real justice, and that's what you're speaking to. And that's how come I have sometimes a hard time. I know people would like to give me plaques or give us plaques for different things, and I appreciate the plaques. But if you're not changing the policy and nothing changed, I'm going to die. My kids are going to throw these plaques away and nothing changed. We need substantial change and accountability, Carmen, and I thank you for that.
So then, Reverend, thank you, Carmen and Reverend Mòore. Who is it that will do this in our community?
Well, I was reading. I picked up something, and I'm still trying to look at them and trying to understand who they are. And I seen it was in Los Angeles. They have a black. Tony may know the legislative word for it, when you have a black conglomerate that comes together to make decisions how we're going to vote in Los Angeles. They call it the Black something or other. I think we're going to have to do a Black collective, because being 30,000 people and spread out through the city, they're not going to really have to. They know now. Most of them know. And I'm not knocking people when I say this stuff, but let's just be very blatant and honesty. And sometimes honesty cuts and hurts and sounds bad. But we know our Vietnamese brothers and sisters normally going to vote by that block of Vietnamese people. They're going to vote that way. And it's not so much wrong, but it is when they're not looking at, is it a Democrat or a Republican, or do they hold our values? You know, look at what happened out at De Anza College just the other day, last week. Mr. Wong said something. I'm not really clear. I'm still trying to get exactly what he said that was probably wrong and offensive toward the Black community. And instead of dialoguing with that Chinese community, that predominantly Asian community over there, we didn't have that dialogue. So now I think there's a little hot friction, but we have to learn to work within those frictions in order to move our thing forward. So if we had a Black political blog or Black political group of people who we came together and we helped nurture our own people who are going to be Black leaders and help them, groom them to know that even my fraternity brother and friend Chappie lived on that side of town. Chappie politics weren't friendly to the east side. And there were times when I had to check Chappie on some of his positions and cause friction there, but and damage to the relationship. But I had to tell him, I love you, brother, but you're not doing what's best for us as a Black community as a whole. But in order for him to stay in office, he was voting sometime that wasn't helpful for us, for he could stay in office. So we have to learn to understand those dynamics as a community, that where he lived and how we can still support him, even though his politicking sometimes wasn't as comfortable for us as Black people, if that makes a point. But we still have an obligation to support him and help him to the best of our abilities, even when we disagree with him.
Okay, I have a question here in the chat. Have we crossed the Rubicon in terms of Black extinction? What can we do to push back when the population is so small? That was one of the things we were discussing earlier this morning, Reverend Mòore, is making or belonging to a multiracial coalition or movement the way to go. And if we go down that route, how do we keep the Black identity?
I think the Black identity is strong, and we could never we would never lose it. We just have to become more proud of it. I think more proud of it. We as Black people, my Black family is multi-ethnic. And so those that come around me know when I'm talking proud Black issues is not talking against them, but I'm pushing the level for us as Black people, because their sons and daughters, according to the American thing, if you have, what's it, a tenth of Black blood in you, you're Black, So, hey, brother, you Black. You may not want it, but you Black, And if it comes down to it, they're going to take you too. That's the reality of it. And
we are going.
Tell our people, and that's what I say. When you really look at our history, I said we haven't accomplished nothing without one another. From the fact that this country is even here today, when we look at what I love about Mexicans and Mexico, and I said, if you guys stop with all the silliness and just deal with your history, you were the first people on this continent to ban slavery. Yet white Southerners came into Texas and tried to force it on you. Yet even though they were somewhat successful, the fact that Cinco de Mayo represents you defeating the French that helped stop the French from coming to back up the Civil War, the South lost because of your victory. So we're in this together. Your second president was African American. We have camaraderie here. Why are you fighting against me, brother? Most of y'all, if you look at us, are just like us. So we have to learn this common bound. And I think that is what drives white fear more than anything, because if we start noticing, and to my European brothers and sisters, y'all as Black as some of us, I don't care if you think you're Italian, I don't care what you think you are. If you just trace the history maps, you will see everybody mingled. And so if the first person came from African, that means it came from a dark seed that went out to the world. And so and it gets lightened up. So we have to stop looking at reasons to fight against each other. And we have to fight against this thing called hatred and this thing called white supremacy that really was not fully developed until it came here to America. Even when it came here to America, and I always say, watch the Gang of New Yorks, there were the 5 boroughs, and that represented almost each different ethnicity that used to fight with each other, until they started really noticing that, hey, we're all white, we won't hire the Black guys. Now, so come when the fire departments or police departments or somebody dies, they play Black bagpipes. What did it have to do with all these people with different minorities? So anyway, I'm going on, but guys, I get on a tangent. But I don't see no separation in us as humans, because we're all human. And if we learn that, and we all have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all want the same thing, and we have to stop making talk.
So the question here again is, I want to get clear, because if our group is so small, how do we push back? I mean, how do we stand up and stop this? This backing down doesn't make any sense at all. But how do we stand up and demand these things? Because with our numbers being so small, do we start with that? Who,
Okay.
who, what, who?
We'll
I
start
see
with.
Tony shaking his head over there too. Tony?
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. We'll start with
Yes.
my fraternity brother, Rick Calder, who is a CEO at the Water District. And when we see him under attack from different groups about stuff that's may not even be true or possibly not even real or made up fantasy stuff to go after him, this whole community of 30,000 people need to stand up to those groups and those individuals who are going after Rick. Whether you like him, whether you know him, or whether you're not, you see him and you know the stress that any Black person that gets in that leadership type of position has to deal with, and we should back him for that reason. And that's a place where we can start backing him. I mean, Rick is my fraternity brothers. We don't always see eye to eye. Men, y'all, we fight more than y'all will ever probably really know. We argue and disagree, but he knows that when it comes down, I'm going to be there to back him up. I think Carmen then Tony.
Carmen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carmen.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
oh, thank you, Jeff. So I have a couple of thoughts around this. I don't believe we've crossed any Rubicon. I don't even think that's something we should even put on the table. And what we can do to push back as a community is we go out and vote. At the end of the day, most of these races are won with very small margins.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, which is, I'm going to give a plug for my organization that I'm launching, is about educating our community so that we can understand how to exercise our power in this political infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we educate our community about the policies and programs and elected officials that are really there for us and start voting for them, then we will be able to affect change. And it only takes a small number. If you have ever listened to the Poor People's Campaign and Bishop Barber speaking, he talks about that. It only takes a small number. It is not hundreds of thousands. You just need a small number. Look at, again, take the stats from every election and see how we as a people, and again, we go out and vote irrespective. We're one of the big voting blocks in this Silicon Valley. So that's where our power lies. And I don't know that we have realized that or that we understand that. So being able to really get that message across and really start to mine that and grow that and really, really develop that is going to have a different conversation. So when Jeff meets with, Jim, who's going to be our new county executive, that guy's shaking in his boots because he knows we come in with power. He knows we're coming with strength. He knows who we're all about and that we're not playing. We're not here to play games and we don't want to hear your story. We want to see action and deliverables executed. And eventually, I think we can get to multiracial. But right now, I think one of the things I'll say as a community, we don't, and I'm going to be transparent here, Tony and Jeff, we don't support each other. We don't even know each other. And I think that's the first thing we have to do is start bridging those gaps. We are very cliquish. We know, certain people that know certain people get involved with certain people and stay that way. And it's important that we realize that as our community, we have to come together. And it has nothing to do with liking each other. It's learning to get our power together.
Exactly.
When we do that, and I think that we have to internally, what they say, fix your backyard first before you talk about your neighbors. That's the same thing we've got to do. We've got to really clean up our act. I'm going to call you out here, Brother Jeff. We got NAACP, we got Tony, we got a whole bunch of other organizations, but we don't come together as a block. It's still very vertical life.
Right.
And it's so critical that we start to be more horizontal. And I'm committed to that as part of the work that I'm going to do with my company, is that creating that vertical engagement.
Thank you, Carmen. Really appreciate your comments. And before I jump into Tony, I recall that and we're going to have you come back and speak about your organization too.
Okay.
Yes, we will do that. But I recall not too long ago, I believe it was the Zoom that we talked about election process.
Yes.
And there were other people in this meeting and they agreed that, yes, we need to get together. And I was wondering when that was going to take place.
We have started that. We have a kickoff right now going on, and we're going to start getting more information about it. It's with PAC. Yeah, we're doing it with people acting in community together, and we are.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely come back and share with you guys. Yes, absolutely.
We're gonna get you scheduled soon. And now, Mr. Tony Alexander, go ahead. Thank you so much.
No, I wanted to agree with Reverend Mòore on a lot of the things that he was talking about when he talked about Malcolm and also talked about some of the other organizations out there. Believe it or not, they got along and talked a little bit more than we thought that we know.
They sure did.
You know, Reverend King and Malcolm X weren't sitting up there throwing daggers at each other. They were working together on a number of different things. And sometimes, and again, one of the things that we have to continue to do is look at that. We all don't have the same type of ideas of how to get to where we have to get to the promised land, right, Jeff?
Right.
There are other ways to get to the promised land. And so one of the things that we have to continue to do is just meet and sit together and try to figure it out. Because one of the things that I always try to tell people, you know what, I might not agree with you, but just let me know what you're doing. Because when they're sitting up there throwing you in the river, okay, I want to be the guy that's going to sit up there and throw you a rope to pull you back in. Okay. Now, I might not agree with what you said, but I'm going to do that. Just like what Jeff was saying about making sure that we all have our backs. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to always continue to do. And believe it or not, I still think that there are a number of us here in this community that will go ahead and continue to talk and try to go ahead and push and help and do what we can. So that's one. The other is that we have to, when these folks are running for election, okay, as what Jeff was explaining regarding former Vice Mayor Chappie Jones, I didn't support him. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, I was not in the area to be able to support him. He was my friend, and when he asked me something, I would always tell him what he needed to go ahead, at least what I thought. Okay, and he's able to go ahead and take that as it is. So that's one thing. But the other is that we all have to remember we're not in Chicago, we're not in DC. We don't have a large Black majority that we can go out there and do that. And if you want to get elected to certain things, you have to be able to be like a shapeshifter and be able to shift, make sure that you're there, because let me tell you, when you're not in the room, okay, those folks will say anything and everything about you. Okay, and wait, we ain't seen nothing yet, okay, because they've been in the room so long by themselves that they already have a thing ready to go ahead and just make happen. So when you're in the room, because that's one of the things that I always tell people as an elected official, okay, y'all will never hear what I tell people in closed session. You don't know that I cuss and fuss, okay, because they can't tell you that. It's not supposed to be known. And so what we have to do is we have to elect people that we know and that we trust that are going to be able to go in there and to do that. So those are some of the things that we have to do. Start electing people that will go in there and make that happen. And Carmen is absolutely right that it only takes a few votes, because I remember when I was on the Allen Rock School Board, I lost by 29 votes. 29. Okay. And so my mother told me, she said, look, you better get your butt out there and start talking to people, because if you're not on that board, those children are going to have a hard time doing, have a hard time because they don't have the perspective of an African American. And that's what we have to kind of go out there and to do. One of the things that I want to ask Reverend Mòore, though, is that just as our population is dwindling, our churches are also dwindling. Okay. What can we do? Okay. Because, I go to Antioch Baptist Church, and I'm going to be real honest with you.
You go to the Antioch Baptist Church.
Wait, I'm going to be real honest with you. Okay. I'm almost the youngest person there, and I'm 63. What can we do, Reverend Mòore, to start talking to some of our young people to get them to come back and participate? Because that, I still believe that the church is the foundation of how we go ahead and move forward with a number of different things. And again, a lot of times people used to tell me, well, you can't fire the preacher. Silicon Valley can't fire the preacher. Okay. Only the people at that church can go ahead and do that. And so how are we going to get that back to where when we go out there and protest against Silicon Valley, and that preacher or that pastor knows that his church has his back. But, you know, in my church, we only got about 50, 60 people that are left that are participating. So what can we do, Reverend Moore? How can we go back and figure out how we can get some of our folks back in there?
Oh, I'm trying to work my way from you back up to Carmen. And that's a very interesting question because, as you know, Tony, what sometime hurtful, last church I went to was out in Myrtle Beach, I think it was. And it was, they still had a Black all-male chorus, 30 guys across the thing. And I'm like, man, I haven't felt this or seen this since Emmanuel. You know, we had the large male choir. So how do we get back there? And one way that we're going to have to get back there is the churches have to understand that these are perilous times. And so when we understand the perilous times, that the God says that, or if we have this concept that the church is the hospital, and if the church is a hospital, that means it's open to heal and to help everyone. And that means more inclusivity. And so that inclusivity means accepting those who traditionally the church has rejected. And that can be our LGBTQ brothers or those questioning those who just don't know. Because our kids are coming up with kids that are accepting and have friends like this. Then they tell their friend they can't go with them on Sunday because their church is not going to be accepted. That is not what Christ said. Christ said he's coming back and he wants us to, who's hot for the love of the Lord, who's hot to seek to be like the Lord, who wants to be. So that means we're going to have to be more into tattoos. All that stuff is strange to you and me. I still have the hard time when I see a cat walk in with a hat on his head and say, "You're in church, take off the hat." You know, well, that's something. Is that necessary for him to get to heaven? The thief on the cross didn't have to meet none of those qualifications. He came as he was. And we have to get to the point where we are more accepting of them and loving of them. God says, now we understand in part, but when I return, you will understand in full. So I'm waiting on his return to understand, because it doesn't make sense. But he says, our men are created in the image of him, in the image. So he couldn't have been a man and a woman, so he had to be a mixture of two. I don't know what it is, man, but he says for us to be loving and to love his creation and to care for his creation. And that's everybody, brother. And that's the earth and everything that's in it. So I don't understand, let's just be very blatant, homosexuality, but I love my brother and I love my sister. And hey, look, he has to fix this, not me. I can't put you in heaven. I can't put you in hell. And the church has got to be open and exchange their pulpits with each other in the Black community. The choirs now we don't have choirs. We have, well, I don't even know what it is they have now. You know, I forget what they call it, but choirs used to have choir day. We used to have musical workshops, and people would come to the workshops. They're not doing none of this now. Now we're in this 21st century mindful, reaching kids who are unchurched and haven't been brought up in church. So we have to find a way to reach them. So Carmen, part of your question, I challenge you, Carmen, or I'll do this with you, Carmen, and let's link up. And what I think we need to do is to shock this Santa Clara County Democratic Party. And we need to bring Cornel West here and listen to what Cornel West has to say at the Black community and have that conversation that he's going to bring to the table that they're not going to be ready to handle. We are democratically led. We're democratically led, but we got so many racial inequities here being led by Democrats. So bring in Cornel West and let's bring this conversation to the table. And you want to rock Santa Clara County, and they will start to pay attention. And
come on, Cornel, come on.
Hey, I'm not saying that we agree with anything he said or done, but listen and get understanding and get a concept and let them know, hey, we are looking at something else. And unless you start to address our issues, we are looking for something that's going to deal with issues of the declining Black community that you are ignoring and act like it doesn't happen. If the probation department is having a hard time finding Black and brown people, and I know I applied there. I know I applied with the county and they brought me on several times to speak on DEI issues, but was not qualified to come in and get a job. So where did I get? I didn't even make it to the interview. So what excluded me from that, but let me come as a speaker? There's something wrong in the system and we know it. And lastly, part of my conversation with Mr. Williams was, one, we want Santa Clara County, and Father John, you know the stats better than anybody on the racial breakdown and the red lighting that was done in this community. Why hasn't Santa Clara County officially put up a reparations committee to study? the hurt that is done and the wealth that it's cost Black people to live. If he wants to do something for this Black community, officially get a reparations committee together, officially by the county, and put up and study how it has hurt Black and brown people, not just because we look at it, they've jailed us more, they broke up our families in foster care more than any place else. And if you're a Black man and you're married, I can remember actually hearing someone say, don't catch a domestic violence case inside of Clara County and be Black, you're gone. No questions asked. Look at the numbers. So these are things that we need now. And the only way we're going to get this Democratic Party off, or Brother Williams or whatever, as he came into office and he talking to two Black people constitute the whole community. Like I told you, and I told him, I am not the whole community by speaking to me. Don't check that box. Don't tell him he spoke to me. And I said anything. You need to call all of us together, have a big lunch or whatever, sit down and talk about it amongst the different leaders of this community. And you need to do that as soon as possible as you take office, because you were appointed, not selected. And no place else in this county can people just move into a position that county supervisor just moved that we know without going through a hiring process, but him. It's not against him. I'm saying he was not went through an ordinary hiring process is all I'm saying. I see.
Thank
Carmen.
you, Reverend Mòore. Thank you. Those so interesting and points well taken. There's a question in the chat by Selena, and she says, we have a significant Ethiopian immigrant population in the Bay Area. How tied in are they and other African immigrants with the local Black movement? There sometimes seems to be a disconnect since some immigrants are so preoccupied with articulating that they don't want to shake up current power systems.
Well, that's a funny thing there, because when some of my closest friends in that community are actually Eritreans and Ethiopians. Actually, if you guys weren't aware that I wrote a resolutions that went national for the support and the building of the Ethiopian dam about 3 or 4 years ago that went national. And we got the government to support it. And that's when Trump threatened he told Egypt or Israel they could go ahead and bomb it. You know, people don't know that, but that resolution started from the branch. And so I'm very supportive of the Ethiopian people and Eritreans and even the West Africans. And yes, I have put down, I think I forget what supervisor I talked to. I said, well, almost every place in Sounds like we have Little Italy, we have Japantown, we have Little Saigon, and unofficially over there in parts of Story Road, like Little Mexico, but we have no place that says anything about being Black. And that San Carlos corridor right there, San Carlos and Bird, right? Guess where where Bird comes across, not Bird, but Martin Luther King. But when you go up off of San Carlos a little further, you start running to nothing but a lot of Ethiopian restaurants. I said, how come we just can't claim this little area and give it some type of I call it Kemet or call it something else that would be Black, to give us some type of ownership of something, some type of belonging to something. I forget the Ellenberg. I talked to Ellenberg about it, and because it's in her neighborhood, right? That's her district. I said, if you could just get that name for us, the remembrance that we are here, there's something that we can start with. So yes, to whoever asked that question, I do believe we need to do more. I supported the Eritrean flag raising, and we got that off the ground, even though the city fought back because they were in the middle of a civil war, and then they wanted to tell that group which group could raise a flag over City Hall. And I tried to tell the city, that's not your job. This group came to you first. This group is the one that does it. Whatever the internal politics of that group was not for the city to settle, but for that community to settle on its own. So I am all for the support of Ethiopia, Eritrea, West Africans, and all of us coming together. And that's the part of the concept of the flag raising event, which we started 15 years ago, was for the African diaspora to come together. And every year I try to use a different group to be part of it or take lead in it, so that we were always communicating with each other. But now we know we have the Eritrean flag raising in Milpitas, San Jose, and at the county. And we do Ethiopian flag raising, I think, just at the city. And so I do have good relationships with them. I'm sorry, but I see Carmen's hand still up.
Yeah, go ahead, Carmen.
So
obviously we get going on this, and there's a couple more questions in the chat. So carry on, Carmen, go ahead.
So question for you in regards to the comment you made a few minutes ago about elected officials or folks who are in the government infrastructure talking to the Black community. What I've heard them say is we've reached out to the Black community, but nobody responds to us. So what are your thoughts? I'm just saying that's what I've been told. So what are your thoughts around that
Let me see the emails.
Can you brief it? Can you answer that briefly?
Yeah.
Let me see the email. Let me see the notice. Let me see where the invite go to. Who just sent it to them, and then we'll start the conversation.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. Good to know.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's a question here that the Mayfair in the day had a 10% of the population from the Black community. I can recall when there were a lot of Blacks in that community as well. And then that they say there are 2 HBCs, I'm not quite sure, and another one close by in Mayfair. What's an HBC?
Historical Black churches.
Oh, the churches. Yes. Sorry, historical Black churches. Sorry.
Yeah, I believe when you think about Mayfair, that was I think they had Salonica. I remember we used to have little parties over at Salonica, and there used to be other stuff for us to do over in that neighborhood. And you have over on San Antonio Road 2 or 3 churches, and much like Tony was bringing earlier, some of our churches have to change. I still sometimes I'm a little offended when I go into a church and they still don't want people to stand up in the pulpit, and I want to know, well, where did that come from? You know, I've been looking for the scripture that said that nobody can reach the pulpit but somebody in garments. I said that's a tradition. That's not something scriptural. So some of it's just traditions, and some of those churches I think are steeped in tradition. I believe there's one holiness church over there, and I know they do a good thing with giving away food and stuff monthly or something like that. So how do we grow those churches back up is always interesting, because if you know, just look at the regular lifespan of a church. It has its beginning and it has its gradual climb, it has its peak, but then we always know it levels off. And so most of those churches have been beyond leveling off. And I just think sometime as I'm reading, and even as we get to it, this is LGBTQ month again, we cannot deny who James Cleveland was. But yet we love his music. And some of our choirs have had some of the most gifted people who were homosexuals or whatever they were. I'm not trying to be disrespectful either way, but we have to understand that God's doing something new, and God's house is open to everybody. And we have to find out a way is how do we make those churches, even though they're historical Black churches in predominantly Latino communities, I think with more outreach with community Latino resources. And again, our Latino people, or depending on where, even the more South America, sometimes I think you come from, it's almost hard to say, because when we don't talk about the Underground Railroad that ran into Texas, we don't talk about that, or how it ran into Mexico, we don't talk about it. And so we don't talk about just how many interbreeded Black and Latino people actually are throughout the Americas. And so when if you just pick up the map and look at the slave trade, where they were dropping them all out, they intermarried, they interbred. So we have to figure out a way as a community to stop looking at the darker brother as the worst person.
Some cities, and they have the green berets and the black berets and all. And I know at Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is in East San Jose, they have the black and brown berets. And the berets, they work together under Father Tony. Is that something, or can our churches band together to do something like that?
I don't see why our churches aren't already banding together. Everybody's hurting, so we need to study and see how we can best support each other and get out of that silo. I mean, the Sunday used to be like I was saying earlier. How come we don't have the musicals anymore? Into the church. We used to do musicals at Emmanuel. The male chorus had a musical. The mass choir had a musical thing where they bring all the other churches in, and we all knew each other, and they don't do that no more. The pastors today don't do that no more. It's like they're scared to share their people, or they're scared to bring in collisions or something. I don't know what it is, but
it's kind of like I don't know, is it the leadership of these people now, of the churches? Because when you mentioned even the male courses at Emmanuel, even the choirs, they went from one Baptist church, then they go to the Holiness Church the next month was choir night. But now I don't even know, of course, I don't belong to any, but I don't know of them going and doing that fellowship with each other anymore.
I just know when I was in the male course at Emmanuel, we would sing in the morning, we would sing in the afternoon, then we may go sing at one or two churches in the evening. We would go up to juvenile halls. We traveled and we did that. We did that from church to church. And, you know, so I say they're not, I don't know, when we talk about the new leadership, I don't know if they, you know, I don't know if they have enough, whatever it is, those older pastors might have been more secure. I don't know what it is that they're protective of what they have, but I can't put my hand on it. Like Tony was saying, I do believe when that pastor gets out there and speak, when I get out there with speak sometime and I go meet with some of the other Black pastors, they didn't appreciate what I said or agree with the position. But I said, it's not about you agreeing about it, it's about you supporting me, because it's, as a church, we're supposed to be loving, and our thing is to care about the downtrodden and the least of these. And that's what I believe, and that's what you see me trying to do. So how do we get back into a loving church? A community church is kick open the doors, but sometime, you know, I can't put my hand on it because I've been reading books about it, but it's not just happening in San Jose. The dwindling of the churches across the nation is happening, and that's, I think, because we can't keep saying God is a God of love and then hate somebody or push somebody away. We can't.
I know we're kind of up against the time, but I have a final thing in here. It says, I know that, do they have a pastoral, like a pastor meetings or something, like a club that the Black pastors are drawn to? Maybe we need a Black all clergy lunch where we can talk about a Black inter-congregational pastor organizational effort. How about that one?
Well, they do have the South Bay Ministers Union, of which I'm a member of, and it was functioning under Pastor Dace, and now it's under Ken. Over at I forget which church is that Ken is at, under Lee Wilson. He's over there with Lee Wilson.
Oh yeah.
But
we're about a minute out. Go ahead.
You're saying it just doesn't seem to be as cohesive now, and sometimes I think that we went from non-air-conditioned churches and fighting for stuff to air-conditioned churches comfortable with the way it is.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you all for your participation. I know this is a conversation that needs to be continued quite frequently and in a broader sense, and we're going to definitely hold Miss Carmen to come and talk to us about her organization. And we thank you, Reverend Jeff, for coming to at least give us an enlightening and for this wonderful discussion, for all of you that attended our meeting. And I don't know what our next meeting will be. We don't have, a summertime, so we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do next month and the month after. But there will be some conversations that will enlighten and follow up on some of the conversations that we had here today. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Reverend Jeff. Thank you, everybody that participated. Ms. Carmen, Representative Tony Alexander. Am I calling it right, Tony? And for all of you that attended, and for our helper, our co-producer, Riley Scanlon. Father John, I'll give it back to you to have our closing here for that one more minute.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining. This is these conversations really helpful for us to kind of talk with folks and just sort of get Catholic Charities personnel, staff, and supporters to understand a little bit more about the Black experience from the Black voice itself. So thank you for an amazing discussion. Nothing is ever boring at this hour that we bring up. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about, racial stuff, about Mexico, whole thing about Black pastors, getting everybody on the same page. Amazing things that we can talk about. We'll move in that direction. So thank you all, and we'll see you all next month. Please please let your friends know that this conversation is ongoing and organically evolving. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. J.
Yeah, my final thing is that I got some some notes in my email saying that people were trying to get in and they couldn't get into this seminar. So I'm not quite sure what happened with our tech thing here today. But anyways, thank you all for coming. We'll see you next time. Take care. Be well.
All right.
Bye.